Welcome to the deep dive. We've got this stack of sources here looking at something that's definitely making headlines.
Yeah, it's really stirring things up. We're talking about citizenship, justice, immigration, all kind of tangled together.
Exactly. So our job today is to sort of unpack all this for you, pull out what really matters from these sources, and help you get a clearer picture.
And right at the center of it is this new memo from the Department of Justice, the DOJ.
Okay.
And look, this isn't just some minor update. It feels like a pretty significant shift in how they're approaching enforcement.
We'll shift out.
Well, it specifically tells federal attorneys to prioritize going after the U.S. citizenship of certain naturalized Americans, revoking it.
Wow, okay. That sounds like it could affect a lot of people.
It potentially could, yeah. Million.
Let's dig into that then. Revocation of citizenship. You mentioned civil denaturalization. What exactly is that? And what's this DOJ memo telling lawyers to actually do?
Right. So civil denaturalization, it's the legal process where the government tries to take away someone's U.S. citizenship.
Okay.
But the key thing here is that it happens in civil court. It's not, an automatic result of a criminal conviction. It's a separate civil case.
I see. And the memo.
The memo tells federal attorneys to, and this is their phrase, maximally pursue these cases. Basically, go after them hard whenever the law fits and they have the evidence.
Maximally pursue.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they targeting specific groups?
The memo outlines a few categories, yeah. Things like suspected war crimes, human rights abuses, terrorism, pretty serious stuff.
Right.
But also, interestingly, individuals who've been convicted of crimes and are seen as, quote, posing an ongoing threat to the United States.
Ongoing threat. That sounds a bit broad. And, this feels like it connects to a bigger picture, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
We saw this major crackdown on immigration ramp up under the Trump administration.
Right.
And this seems like it's widening the net. It's not just about undocumented immigrants anymore.
Exactly. That's the shift. The focus is expanding to include people who went through the whole process, followed the rules, and became citizens. Naturalized citizens are now sort of in the spotlight here.
So let's be clear for everyone listening. Who are these naturalized citizens we're talking about?
Good question. So naturalized citizens are immigrants who legally became U.S. citizens. They didn't just show up. They met specific requirements.
Like what kind of requirements?
Well, typically they have to live here as a lawful permanent resident, have a green card for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Then there are background checks, pretty thorough ones. They also have to show they can speak, read, and write basic English.
Right, the language test.
Yeah, and demonstrate knowledge of U.S. history and government, the civics test. And finally, they take the oath of allegiance.
It's a whole process.
It really is. And we're not talking about a small number of people. There are over 24 million naturalized citizens in the U.S.
24 million.
Yeah, it's more than half of all immigrants living in the country.
Okay, that's a huge number. And thinking historically, taking away citizenship, denaturalization, that's been super rare, hasn't it?
Oh, incredibly rare. Almost unheard of for a long time. If you look back, say, between 1990 and 2017,
Yeah.
the DOJ filed, on average, maybe 11 denaturalization cases per year.
Just 11 a year across the whole country.
11, it was like an exception, not the rule at all.
Wow. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting then, as you said. If it was so rare, when did that change? Because the sources point to 2017 as a turning point.
That's exactly right. Things started shifting significantly around then. For instance, in 2018 alone,
Wow.
U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, they reviewed thousands of old cases looking for potential grounds for denaturalization.
Thousands.
Yep. And out of those reviews, they referred over 100 cases to the Justice Department just in that 1 year.
So from 11 a year average to over 100 referrals in 2018 alone.
Exactly. It's a massive jump. There's a legal scholar, Professor Cassandra Burke-Robertson, who's looked at this. And she basically said denaturalization is no longer a fringe action. It's becoming a routine enforcement tool.
A routine tool. That's a pretty stark way to put it.
It captures the shift, I think.
Yeah. So that really brings up some big questions, legally speaking. I mean, is this constitutional? What are the main arguments against doing this through civil court?
That's really the crux of the debate. The big concern critics raise is due process.
Due process? How so?
Well, think about it. In a criminal trial, the government has to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high bar, right?
Right. The highest standard.
But in a civil case, the standard is usually just preponderance of the evidence. Basically, is it more likely than not? It's a much lower burden of proof.
Okay.
So the argument is citizenship is this fundamental right guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. Taking that away,
Right.
shouldn't that require the highest level of proof, the criminal standard?
Not just the more likely than not standard.
Exactly. Doing it civilly, critics argue, makes that fundamental right too vulnerable. It could, set a dangerous precedent.
And I remember reading something potentially even more worrying, how this might bleed into things like free speech. That seems like a leap from war crimes.
Yeah, that's a really critical point. And it's not just theoretical. We saw instances under the previous administration.
Like what?
Well, they detained and tried to deport some immigrants, even green card holders, based on their political activism.
Really?
Yeah, there was this case involving Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist. He was targeted, and officials basically argued his activism, his speech, could undermine U.S. policy or even endanger students.
Just for his activism.
They linked it to fighting anti-Semitism, but the core was his political expression. And here's the kicker.
What?
Some of that same kind of language about expression posing a threat to U.S. interests, it shows up in this new DOJ memo.
Whoa. So the worry is this could be used to target people for their political views, not just for crimes.
That's definitely a concern that's being raised, yeah, that the grounds could be interpreted broadly.
Okay, so we have this new memo, this increased focus, these constitutional questions. Has anyone actually been denaturalized recently under this renewed push? Are they actually losing their citizenship?
Yes, it is happening. There's at least one recent case we know of where a man was convicted for distributing child sexual abuse material.
Right.
And after his conviction, the DOJ went to civil court and successfully revoked his citizenship based on that.
So it's not just talk, it's actually occurring.
It is. Now, the numbers are still relatively small compared to, say, deportations. But they are happening, and the momentum seems to be building.
And as you said, the legal bar in civil court isn't quite as high as people might think.
Exactly. That preponderance of the evidence standard makes it, well, less difficult than securing a criminal conviction specifically for the purpose of stripping citizenship.
Man. So when you step back and look at all this,
Ah.
it's clearly not just some, minor legal adjustment.
Not at all.
This feels like a really powerful tool, both politically and legally. It seems like it could actually reshape what citizenship even means in the U.S.
I think that's fair to say. It puts these naturalized citizens, remember, over 24 million people who jumped through all the hoops, took the oath, became part of the fabric of the country.
Yeah.
It puts them under this new kind of scrutiny. Their citizenship, which many probably thought was permanent, might now feel a bit more conditional,
Right.
revocable.
Which really leaves you, the listener, with a big question, doesn't it?
It definitely does. You have to ask yourself, are these policies genuinely just about protecting national security, going after the really bad actors?
Yep.
Or are they pushing things too far? Are they crossing a constitutional line? And maybe even changing the fundamental meaning of being an American citizen for millions of people?
It really gets to the heart of things. What does citizenship guarantee? And what happens when that guarantee feels less certain? Something definitely worth thinking about.